Feminism. It's a word you hear all the time, right? But it's also kind of complicated, and a lot of people misunderstand it. So, what is it really? Where did it come from? And what are the core ideas that actually drive it? Well, let's break it down.
All right, so let's just get right to it. We've all heard the word feminism, but what does it actually mean? It's not just one simple belief, it's a whole way of looking at the world.
Okay, so at its most basic level, feminism is built on this one core idea that the way our society is structured, everything from our laws to our cultural expectations, doesn't always treat men and women with the same fairness. It's an ideology that wants to understand why that is and then figure out how to change it.
To really understand what feminism is today, we kind of have to go back in time. We need to look at how it's changed. And its history is usually broken down into four big periods, which people call the four waves.
So here's a quick roadmap of that journey. You can see it starts way back in the 1850s with the fight to vote, and it brings us right up to the present day with online activism. And what's interesting is that each wave didn't just appear out of nowhere. It built on the ideas of the last one, and sometimes even challenged them.
So why call them waves? Well, think about it. The history of feminism isn't some steady, straight line of progress. It's more like these huge surges of energy and protest and new ideas, which then might quiet down for a bit before the next big wave of thinking comes crashing in. The first wave was really a fight for a seat at the table. The whole focus was on basic legal and political rights. And the number one goal, suffrage, the right for women to vote. Their thinking was pretty straightforward. If women have to obey the laws, then they should have a say in making them. Simple as that. But here's the thing. Once women got the vote, it became pretty clear that just changing the laws wasn't enough. The second wave dug deeper, looking at all the unwritten social rules and cultural expectations holding women back. This is when huge ideas like patriarchy enter the conversation, and we get that famous phrase, the personal is political. We're going to come back to that one for sure. Then comes the third wave. And this is where feminism really starts to look inward and ask some tough questions. The big critique was that for a long time, the movement had really only focused on the experiences of white, middle-class women. This wave brought us the absolutely essential concept of intersectionality, this idea that you can't just look at gender alone to understand inequality. And that brings us right up to today, to the fourth wave. This wave is all about the digital age. It uses social media as a powerful tool for organizing and raising awareness, and it tackles issues that are a huge part of our modern lives, like how women are represented in media and the reality of online harassment. Okay, so I mentioned that big idea from the second wave, patriarchy. Let's unpack that, because it is so central to a lot of feminist thought. It's a word we hear all the time, but what are we really talking about? So when feminists talk about patriarchy, they're not usually talking about, individual bad guys. They're talking about the whole system, an entire web of social structures that historically has been set up in a way that gives advantages to men as a group.
And this is a fantastic way to visualize it. The theorist Sylvia Walby broke it down into 6 main areas that all prop each other up. See how it's not just one thing? You've got imbalances in paid work, like the pay gap, which is connected to the household and who's expected to do the unpaid labor there. Then you have the state, culture, sexuality. They're all interlocked. It's the whole system working together.
And that idea, that this system is everywhere, that leads us straight to another game-changing concept from the second wave, the idea that the personal is political. For a long, long time, there was this idea that society was split in two. You had the public sphere, politics, business, art. That was considered the world of men. And then you had the private sphere, the home, the family, which was seen as the world of women. And whatever happened in that private world, well, that was a private matter.
And then came this phrase, the personal is political. And I mean, wow, this was a bombshell. It completely tore down that wall between the public and the private. It made the argument that things happening in the home, like who does the dishes, or more seriously, domestic violence, those aren't just personal problems. They're political issues that reflect how power works in our society, and they need political solutions.
Okay, so this is super important to get. Just because someone's a feminist doesn't mean they agree with every other feminist on how to solve these problems. Feminism is not a monolith. It's a huge, messy, fascinating debate with a whole bunch of different schools of thought. Now, to really make sense of these different branches, we have to go back to that crucial idea from the third wave, intersectionality. This is the lens that helps us see how all these different systems of power, like racism, classism, and sexism, don't operate separately. They overlap and intersect.
So, for instance, a Black woman's experience is shaped by both racism and sexism at the same time. You can't separate them.
So check this out. This table does a great job of showing how these different branches of feminism see the world. Let's just take the economy, for example. A liberal feminist might say the solution is getting more women into leadership positions within our current system. But a socialist feminist would say, no, the whole capitalist system itself is the problem. Meanwhile, a radical feminist might argue that even if we got rid of capitalism, patriarchy would still be the root issue. You see, they identify different problems, so they come up with very different solutions.
So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's that feminism isn't some kind of single rule book. It's a living, breathing conversation. It's a long, ongoing debate that's been changing for over 100 years as it tries to figure out what inequality looks like and what justice really means.
Which, of course, brings us to the future. History shows us that feminism always adapts to the world around it. So as our society keeps changing with new technologies and new challenges, you have to wonder, how are these powerful, evolving ideas going to change with it? That's it for this explainer. Thanks for joining us.